What if I told you that everything you've believed is a complete lie? For years, school textbooks and popular westerns have forced upon us a stereotype of tribes that were merely struggling to survive day by day in harsh conditions. Today, we're going to shatter that myth to smithereens. Are you ready to learn the stunning truth about what life was really like on the Great Plains exactly 400 years ago? Imagine a completely different picture, the world before the colonizers arrived. Back then, this boundless land was full of unimaginable abundance. The vast plains, black with the backs of bison, stretched all the way to the horizon, and every new dawn brought the Native Americans an incredible, unshakable confidence in the future. It was a true golden age, one that is hardly ever mentioned today. But the clock of history was already ticking. Just 300 years later, this unique, perfectly balanced world would disappear forever and irrevocably. It would be brutally trampled and ground to dust under the merciless onslaught of relentless historical progress and steel railroads. What exactly was lost forever? Be sure to watch this video all the way to the very last second. Today we'll delve into the fascinating and little-known details of how the legendary Lakota hunters found perfect harmony with the wilderness. You'll discover the secrets of their philosophy and understand why each of their days was not just a daily routine, but a true complex art of living. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so you don't miss stories like this, and let's dive in. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies in the Lakota hunter's special regard for the very first hour of dawn. The hunter would leave the teepee in complete silence, without disturbing the peace of the sleeping camp. His day began by assessing the direction of the wind, which carried the sense of distant grasses and damp earth. He gazed at the horizon, where the sky was just beginning to take on pale shades of blue and pink. At that moment, a man didn't simply wake up. He attuned himself to the single rhythm of the vast plain. The purification ritual was an essential part of every new morning for a grown man. The hunter walked to the nearest stream, whose water was icy even in the height of summer. He washed his face and hands, rinsing away the remnants of sleep and preparing his mind for the long journey ahead. The cold water invigorated his body, making his movements more precise, sharp, and as confident as possible. Afterward, the Lakota might stand for a long time on the bank, listening to the quiet murmur of the stream. Before leaving camp, the hunter would always sing a quiet song of gratitude to the bountiful land. The words of this song were not spoken aloud. They resonated only in his thoughts. He thanked the plains for the clear sky, for the fresh water, and for the abundance of resources all around. This inner dialogue with nature created a strong, invisible bond between the man and the world around him. Only after this ancient ritual did the Lakota consider himself fully prepared for the day ahead. Leaving the camp, the man moved with a distinctive gliding stride that left no deep footprints on the ground. His feet touched the ground softly, rolling from toe to heel to maintain balance. This way of walking allowed him to conserve his strength during many hours of continuous movement. The hunter could cover enormous distances with virtually no fatigue in his well-trained legs. The plains demanded incredible endurance, and the Lakota body was perfectly adapted to these conditions. The hunter's gaze constantly scanned the horizon, noting the slightest changes in the familiar landscape. He noticed a broken branch on a lone bush or trampled grass near a small ravine. These tiny details told him whole stories about what had happened here during the night. To the untrained eye, the prairie seemed empty, but the Lakota read it like an open book. Every blade of grass served as an important sign, pointing the way to a safe path ahead. The sun rose higher, flooding the Great Plains with bright light and warming the cold earth. The morning mist dissipated, revealing endless expanses stretching far beyond the horizon. The hunter quickened his pace, savoring the warmth and freedom of this vast, pristine expanse. In that era, resources were so abundant that a shortage of food seemed utterly impossible. The earth generously shared its bounty with those who knew how to ask for and receive it properly. Along the way, the Lakota made brief stops to gauge the shifting direction of the wind. He would take a handful of dry dust and slowly let it fall from his palm, watching the grains of sand as they drifted through the air. The wind was the hunter's greatest ally, concealing his scent and muffling the sound of his footsteps. The ability to make proper use of air currents determined the success of any long trek across the plains. The hunter always tried to plan his route so that the wind blew directly into his face. Morning gradually gave way to day, and the hunter ventured farther and farther from his camp. He felt like a part of this vast system, where every phenomenon had its rightful place. Life on the plains in that era was filled with deep meaning and absolute harmony with nature. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this way of life among the nomadic peoples of the prairie? Share your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. What if everything you were taught is outdated, and true knowledge has always been hidden in the dust beneath our feet? Lakota hunters mastered the art of tracking to a degree that is completely beyond the reach of modern people. They could determine the age of a track, down to a few hours, based on how much the morning dew had dried. The shape of the flattened grass told them the direction of travel, and even the speed of the passing creature. It was a complex science, passed down from generation to generation without a single written word. The plain was a complex mosaic of different soils, scents, and faint sounds. On hard, rocky ground, tracks were almost non-existent, requiring incredible visual concentration. Here, the hunter looked for displaced pebbles or barely noticeable scratches on the surface of smooth rocks. In the soft mud near watering holes, footprints were as easy to read as large letters on a white sheet of paper. The Lakota knew how to piece these scattered signs together into a single coherent picture of what was happening around them. Great importance was placed on examining broken branches and damaged leaves on shrubs. If the sap on a broken branch had not yet dried, it meant the animal had passed through there very recently. A dark, dry edge on the break indicated that the track had been left several days earlier. The hunter carefully felt such branches with his fingers, trusting his sense of touch no less than his sight. This method allowed him to unerringly determine the freshness of a trail, even in the thickest thickets. Dust on the leaves of plants also served as an excellent indicator of recent movement by an animal. In dry weather, any movement across the prairie stirred up the tiniest particles of soil into the air. These particles slowly settled on the lower branches of shrubs and tall prairie grass. The hunter noticed places where the dusty coating had been wiped away or disturbed by a recent accidental touch. Such areas immediately caught his attention and prompted him to thoroughly search the surrounding area. By midday, the sun began to beat down fiercely, forcing him to seek a brief rest in the shade. The Lakota chose a spot under a spreading tree or in a small hollow sheltered from the scorching rays. He sat on the ground with his legs crossed and allowed his weary muscles to relax completely. This rest was brief, but it fully restored his physical strength for the journey ahead. During the break, he continued to watch the horizon intently, never letting his guard down. The topography of the Great Plains required the ability to navigate the terrain without any maps. Hunters used prominent hills, unusual rock formations, and dry riverbeds as reliable landmarks. They kept vast territories in their memory, creating a detailed mental map of their native region. Every tree with an unusual shape or large boulder had its own name and significance. This allowed them to travel freely for hundreds of miles and always find their way back. The art of reading the land made a person the true unseen master of this boundless land. He moved across it with confidence, knowing every secret and every hidden narrow trail. These unique skills were passed down from fathers to sons over many long centuries. Do you think modern people could navigate with the same incredible precision? In the next chapter, you'll learn about the unique camouflage techniques that allowed the Lakota to literally blend into the tall prairie grass. The secret, passed down from generation to generation, lies in the ability to become completely invisible in open terrain. Lakota camouflage was not limited to simply choosing the right color of clothing or using natural materials. It was a deep understanding of how vision works and how to deceive even the most attentive gaze. A hunter learned to blend into the texture of the background, breaking up the silhouette of his body into indistinct shapes. He skillfully used the shadows cast by trees and rocks, moving only where the light could not give him away. One of the main rules of camouflage was the complete elimination of any sudden jerky movements. The eye reacts instantly to rapid movement, so the Lakota moved incredibly smoothly and cautiously. Each step took several seconds, turning into a slow dance among the tall prairie grasses. A hunter could remain motionless in an uncomfortable position for a long time if he sensed even the slightest approaching danger. This iron self-control was honed through years of persistent daily practice and long meditations in nature. The use of natural cover had been elevated by nomadic peoples to the level of a supreme art. This helped them avoid loud snorting, which could instantly give away their hiding place in calm weather. Their breathing rhythm was synchronized with the gusts of wind, so that any accidental sound would be lost in the noise of nature. The Lakota could control their bodies just as masterfully as they controlled their sturdy bows. A person's scent was the most powerful factor that could give them away in the harsh conditions of the wilderness. To mask it, hunters rubbed their bodies and clothing with fragrant herbs, such as bitter wormwood or sage. Smoke from a fire, made from certain types of wood, also helped to mask a person's natural scent. The Lakota never used artificial substances that might leave a strong foreign scent in the air. They smelled of earth, grass, and wind, becoming indistinguishable to the keen senses of the prairie's inhabitants. Assessing lighting conditions was a critically important skill for successful camouflage on the open plains. A hunter always knew exactly where the sun was and how long shadows fell at any given moment. He tried to keep the light source behind him to blind anyone who might be looking intently in his direction. At dusk or dawn, the Lakota moved with particular caution, as the contrast between light and shadow intensified. They used the play of light to create perfect optical illusions of their complete absence. The art of invisibility made the Lakota hunters true ghosts of the Great Plains of that era. They could appear out of nowhere and vanish into thin air, leaving behind only the faint rustle of a warm breeze. These unique skills were the result of centuries of experience living in harmony with a harsh yet bountiful natural world. The ability to blend into the landscape ensured the safety and prosperity of the entire nomadic tribe. Please like this video if you were impressed by the incredible ingenuity and resilience of Native Americans. What has been found in old archives is a testament to the craftsmanship of the ancient creators of everyday tools. The Lakota's weapons and tools were true works of art, combining functionality with remarkable beauty. A hunter's primary tool was his bow, made from strong and highly flexible ash or cedar wood. The process of crafting a good bow took several months of painstaking and incredibly precise work. The craftsman carefully dried the wood, shaping it into the desired curved form over hot steam from glowing coals. The bowstring was made from twisted fibers that possessed incredible strength and natural elasticity. These fibers were thoroughly dried, split into thin strands, and then tightly woven together. Such a bowstring did not stretch due to moisture and maintained its strong tension under any weather conditions, even the most extreme. It ensured a powerful and accurate shot over a fairly long open distance. Crafting a high-quality bowstring required immense patience and remarkable dexterity on the part of the craftsman. Arrows were crafted with no less meticulous and close attention to every minute detail. The shafts were carved from straight shrub shoots, carefully stripped of bark, and polished at length with a rough stone. The arrowheads were made from flint or obsidian by chipping off small flakes with a special bone tool. These stone points were incredibly sharp and could be quickly resharpened when absolutely necessary. Fletching made from sturdy feathers ensured the arrow had ideal aerodynamics and a very smooth flight toward its intended target. Equipment was carried in very convenient leather bags of various sizes. These bags were sewn from soft suede and had numerous small internal compartments for storing small items. Spare arrowheads, flints for starting fires, and dried medicinal herbs were neatly packed inside them. The bag straps were slung over the shoulder, evenly distributing the weight and allowing complete freedom of arm movement. Every item in the bag had its own designated spot for quick and error-free access without looking. Bone needles and strong thread were always part of every adult male's camping kit. In the wild, clothing and footwear were often torn by dry thorns or sharp rocky outcrops. The ability to repair moccasins quickly and effectively was an absolutely vital skill on the rocky stretches of the plains. A hunter could sew up a hole with a tight stitch right during a short midday rest under a solitary tree. This minor repair ensured continued comfort and complete safety while traveling across rough terrain. Large water bottles made of thick leather or large dried gourds were used to store drinking water. The inner surface of these bottles was treated with hot sand and charcoal to keep the water fresh for a long time. The neck was tightly sealed with a wooden stopper to prevent the precious liquid from spilling while running at a fast pace. These containers were very light, did not break if accidentally dropped, and kept the water cool even in intense heat. The flask was attached to the belt with a sturdy leather strap to ensure maximum comfort while traveling. The Lakota treated their few tools with deep respect and the utmost care. Each object was considered alive and endowed with its own unique spirit, demanding reverent treatment. Weapons were never thrown onto damp ground or left out in the rain without a reliable, dry shelter. They were carefully maintained, greased with natural fat to protect them from moisture, and regularly checked for overall durability. This care ensured that the tools would never fail their owner at the most critical moment. The craftsmanship involved in making these tools was the foundation of a secure and long life on the Great Plains. Lakota tools were distinguished by their incredible reliability, ease of repair, and perfect adaptation to the harsh environment. Every detail was crafted with a deep understanding of the laws of physics and the properties of available natural materials. Could you create such a perfect bow with nothing but a piece of wood and a sharp stone at your disposal? In the next chapter, you'll learn how Native Americans read the silent language of the prairie and predicted changes in the local weather. For a Lakota hunter, the wind was not merely a weather phenomenon, but a vital and constant source of information. Air currents constantly carried scents, providing detailed insights into what was happening for many miles around. A light breeze might carry the sweet scent of flowering grasses, indicating the presence of fresh water somewhere nearby. A strong, dry wind served as an early warning of an approaching drought and the need to conserve resources strictly. The ability to correctly interpret these invisible messages was critically important for every inhabitant of the vast plains. The stars in the night sky invariably served as the most reliable compass for navigating the boundless steppe at night. The Lakota knew perfectly well the positions of the major constellations and their slow movement throughout the long year. The North Star always pointed unerringly to the north, helping them maintain an absolutely accurate course in the darkness. The starry sky was also actively used to keep track of time during long nighttime treks or night watches. This vast cosmic calendar was accessible to anyone who simply knew how to look up and gaze high into the sky. Lunar cycles strictly dictated the rhythm of life for the entire tribe, indicating the best times for various large-scale activities. The full moon illuminated the plains so brightly that it allowed people to move about at night almost as confidently as during the day. During this bright period, the entire tribe would often organize long treks to new, more bountiful campsites. The new moon, on the other hand, brought deep, impenetrable darkness, ideal for stealthy observation or peaceful rest. The Indians lived in strict accordance with these natural lunar phases, never attempting to defy the wisdom of nature. The behavior of plants before rain also never escaped the watchful eye of an experienced prairie hunter. Some flowers would tightly close their buds at the slightest increase in humidity in the warm surrounding air. The leaves of certain trees would turn their undersides toward the wind, clearly foreshadowing the imminent approach of a severe thunderstorm. Dry grass became more pliable and surprisingly soft, eagerly soaking up invisible moisture from the dense atmosphere. These subtle signals from the flora helped the Lakota prepare thoroughly for the storm, long before the very first raindrops fell. The calm before the storm was a unique and frightening state of the prairie, one that the Lakota felt very keenly. The wind would suddenly die down, and the air would become incredibly thick, heavy, and absolutely, terrifyingly still. In such rare moments, nature seemed to freeze, tensely awaiting the powerful blow of the elements from the darkening sky. The hunter used this brief time to make a final check of his gear and reinforce his makeshift shelter as much as possible. He knew full well that this deceptive silence would not last long, and soon the plain would be filled with the deafening roar of the wind. The rivers and streams of the plains also had their own unique language, understood only by experienced locals. Water levels in the riverbeds could rise very sharply after heavy rains that had fallen many miles away. The color of the water would instantly change from clear to murky brown, warning of a powerful torrent of mud from the distant hills. The sound of the river would become significantly louder or quieter, depending on the volume of water flowing over the smooth stones. The Lakota always listened intently to these waterways, which sustained the very life of the entire vast prairie. What would happen if no one ever learned about this incredible, astonishing abundance of the prairie's plant life? 400 years ago, the Great Plains were a gigantic granary, full of the most diverse and nutritious natural resources. The Lakota hunters and gatherers knew well the hidden properties of hundreds of species of edible roots, prairie grasses, and wild berries. As the men scouted the distant horizons, they also paid close attention to new locations where useful plants grew. This botanical knowledge allowed them to diversify their diet and provide the tribe with the necessary food at any time of year. Wild turnip was one of the most valuable and sought-after food plants in these vast expanses. Its starchy tubers were found quite deep underground, and required considerable physical effort to extract. The Native Americans used special pointed sticks made of very hard wood to carefully dig up this nutritious, light-colored root. Wild turnips could be eaten raw, simmered for a long time over a campfire, or dried for very long-term winter storage. When dried, it could be stored for years, reliably saving people from starvation during the harshest and snowiest winters. The famous pemmican was the crowning achievement of Native American cuisine and an unrivaled ideal survival food. It consisted of meat that had been dried and ground into a powder, then thoroughly mixed with rendered fat and crushed berries. This dense, filling mixture was tightly packed into leather pouches where it could be stored for decades without spoiling in the slightest. Pemmican had simply enormous energy value, surpassing any modern hiking trail mix in caloric content. A small piece of this food was more than enough for a hunter to maintain peak activity throughout an entire grueling day. Wild onions and garlic were found everywhere, in abundance on the prairie, adding a pleasant, pungent flavor to the otherwise bland daily diet. These plants were very easy to recognize by their characteristic pungent odor and tall, slender stems with beautiful purple flower clusters. The Lakota harvested them in large quantities in early spring, when the greens were at their juiciest and richest in beneficial micronutrients. The bulbs were eaten both fresh and baked, significantly improving overall digestion. In addition, wild garlic was often used as a highly effective remedy for reliably preventing colds. Trees also provided a wealth of incredibly useful materials for the daily life and cooking of indigenous peoples. Sweet maple sap was collected in early spring and boiled down for a long time until it became a thick, incredibly aromatic, and delicious syrup. Birch bark was skillfully used to create very light and durable containers for gathering berries and storing bulk foods. The inner part of the soft bark of some trees could be eaten during periods of extreme scarcity of other resources. The forest along the rivers was a veritable natural supermarket, where one could easily find everything necessary for a comfortable life. Nuts and seeds from various steppe plants served as an excellent and accessible source of plant-based protein and healthy natural fats. Sunflower seeds were carefully harvested in the fall, thoroughly dried, and ground into nutritious dark flour using heavy stones. Acorns required a long soaking in running river water to completely remove their unpleasant natural bitterness. After this treatment, they became perfectly suitable for baking delicious and very filling flatbreads on hot, flat stones. These gifts of nature significantly and substantially enriched the Lakota diet, making their nutrition as balanced and healthy as possible. The process of gathering plants was always accompanied by strict unwritten rules aimed at preserving the fragile natural balance. The Lakota never dug up absolutely all the roots in one spot, always leaving some behind for future propagation. They carefully cut thin branches without damaging the main trunk of the tree at all, so that it could continue to grow unhindered. This centuries-old practice of conservation ensured that the land would reliably yield abundant harvests in the coming warm year as well. The Native Americans saw themselves as caring stewards of this land, not as its greedy and ruthless consumers. The abundance of plant life made life on the Great Plains prosperous, measured, and quite stable. Nature generously shared its immeasurable riches with those who treated her with due and sincere respect. This ancient knowledge allowed the Native Americans to remain independent of the whims of fate and always maintain a reliable safety net. Which of these ancient recipes for natural survival do you think could be effectively used today? In the next chapter, we'll visit a Lakota evening camp to witness their peaceful, orderly daily life. A hunter's return to camp was always a moment of quiet, sincere joy, and deep satisfaction from the hard work he had done. As twilight fell, a cool breeze swept across the endless plain, and the distinctive smell of smoke from the campfires became particularly distinct. The Lakota camp consisted of a strict, perfect circle of cone-shaped tipis, arranged according to a specific ancient traditional layout. The entrance to each dwelling invariably faced east, so that they would be the first to greet the morning rays of the rising sun. This circular layout vividly symbolized the unbreakable unity of the tribe and the absolute equality of all its adult, full-fledged members. The interior of the dwelling was organized with remarkable practicality and the deepest respect for centuries-old traditions. In the center was always a neat hearth, lined with smooth stones, which served as the main source of heat and soft light. Along the sloping walls lay soft sleeping areas, carefully covered with warm animal skins and woven mats made of dry steppe grass. Equipment and food supplies were neatly hung on wooden tripods, so as not to take up valuable living space on the ground. Perfect, impeccable order reigned in the tipi, where every item always had its strictly designated familiar place. Evenings by the bright campfire were a time for long conversations, sharing the latest news, and discussing plans for the next day. The men leisurely repaired their camping gear, sharpened their knives, and checked the strength of their bows by the flickering light of the flames. The women were engrossed in embroidery, creating incredibly intricate and beautiful patterns using dyed porcupine quills. The atmosphere in the evening camp was filled with tranquility, confidence in the future, and a sense of complete, absolute safety. These quiet evenings strongly bonded the people, making the nomadic tribe a unified, indestructible, and robust social organism. Food was prepared over an open, hot fire, using various ancient and highly effective traditional cooking methods. Meat was roasted for a long time on wooden spits over red-hot coals or cooked in special leather bags using scorching hot stones. This unique ancient cooking method produced very rich broths, infused with the magnificent flavor of steppe herbs and roots. Meals were served in intricately carved wooden bowls or on large, smooth, flat pieces of sturdy tree bark. Meals were always eaten in absolute silence, as the Native Americans treated the act of eating with the utmost respect. In the evening, special attention was paid to thoroughly inspecting and drying their hiking footwear. After a very long and difficult day, they cleaned the moccasins incredibly carefully to remove any caked-on dirt and placed them near the fire so that the damp leather would retain its shape. If the moccasins got very wet, they were tightly stuffed with dry grass, which very quickly absorbed all the excess, damaging moisture. Spare pairs of shoes were always kept on hand, as the endurance of every steppe hunter depended directly on the health of his feet. This daily, monotonous ritual of caring for their belongings ensured they could move comfortably across the harsh plains the very next day. The Council of Wise Elders often gathered in the evening, when the exhausting daytime heat and constant bustle had finally subsided. The tribe's most experienced and revered men would sit in a tight circle, slowly passing around a shared pipe as a sign of deep respect. They leisurely discussed matters such as moving the camp, concluding treaties with neighbors, or fairly resolving internal domestic disputes. Important decisions were not made by a simple vote, but through a very lengthy search for a compromise that would satisfy absolutely all members of the council. The elders' wisdom was based on their vast, invaluable life experience and the deepest knowledge of the ancient Lakota traditions. Night gently descended upon the Great Plains, shrouding the silhouettes of the tipis in its cool, dark veil, thickly studded with bright stars. The blazing campfires gradually died down, leaving behind only the quiet, mesmerizing glow of red, glowing embers. The vast camp sank into a deep sleep, securely guarded by sentries posted on watch and by the boundless, desolate expanse of the prairie. It was a life full of true meaning, inner dignity, and absolute freedom from the hustle and bustle of the industrial centuries to come. Tomorrow's dawn promised to be just as bountiful, clear, and full of entirely new possibilities for the entire sleeping tribe. For the Lakota, the creation of clothing and household items was an incredibly labor-intensive, yet very important and creative, daily process. All materials were sourced exclusively from nature's bounty, and not a single part of the hard-earned resources went to waste. Tanning hides was an extremely difficult task that required great physical strength, incredible perseverance, and vast practical experience. The hides were carefully and methodically cleaned of fat residues and dense tissue, using bone scrapers on special large wooden frames. This arduous first stage of the work entirely determined the quality and durability of the final leather product. To give the leather the necessary softness, a complex ancient tanning process was used, involving specific natural ingredients. A special mixture made from liver and brains was rubbed into the leather for a long time, and with great effort, making the material very elastic. Afterward, the hide was kneaded by hand for an incredibly long time, being stretched vigorously in different directions over the warm, cooling ashes of a fire. This stage could take several days of continuous physical labor until the leather became as soft as high-quality, expensive fabric. The result was an exquisite, thin suede, from which women sewed incredibly comfortable and very warm everyday clothing. Sewing everyday clothing was a true applied art, requiring a keen eye and a very steady, confident woman's hand. Needles were made from small, hard bones or thorns from shrubs, and thin, carefully split tendons served as extra strong thread. The seams were always made incredibly tight, and even so that the cold wind could not penetrate the joints where the pieces of warm clothing were joined. The edges of many garments were often decorated with long suede fringe, which not only looked beautiful, but also helped shed water during rain. Each garment was sewn strictly to order, perfectly and painstakingly tailored to the specific figure of its future owner. Decorating clothing was the primary way to express one's individuality and clearly demonstrate one's social status. Before the widespread introduction of glass beads, Native Americans skillfully used dyed porcupine quills to create intricate geometric patterns. The needles were carefully flattened and sewn very tightly to the leather, creating beautiful raised bands of red, blue, and yellow. These patterns often carried a very deep symbolic meaning, proudly recounting the owner's exploits or spiritual visions. It could take many months of painstaking evening work by women to create a single, richly decorated ceremonial shirt. Weaving various baskets and mats was another very important and useful craft common among Native American women. The primary materials used were flexible willow twigs, long stems of marsh grass, or thin strips of tree bark. The baskets were woven so skillfully and tightly that some of them could reliably hold water without any additional lining. Dried berries, roots, and other food supplies were carefully stored in them, protecting them from dampness and small field rodents. Mats served as an excellent insulating layer, which was always laid on the cold ground inside each spacious tipi. Various ceremonial objects were created specifically and exclusively for important spiritual rituals and tribal festivals. Peace pipes were carefully carved from soft red catlinite stone, which was quarried in sacred quarries far to the north. The stems for these sacred pipes were made from long, hollow wooden stalks, lavishly decorated with feathers, fur, and colored ribbons. Every tiny detail of such an object held deep sacred meaning, connecting the tangible material world with the invisible spirit world. These artifacts were kept with the utmost care in special, sturdy leather cases and passed down as the greatest of treasures. The Lakota material world was eco-friendly, incredibly practical, and astonishingly beautiful in its primal, natural simplicity. Every object retained the living warmth of human hands and the powerful energy of nature from which it had been carefully crafted. People did not surround themselves with unnecessary clutter, keeping only what was truly useful or held great spiritual significance. This minimalist material culture allowed them to always remain free and completely independent of the burden of accumulated excess. They possessed only the bare minimum, yet felt utterly rich and infinitely happy. The spiritual life of the Lakota permeated every one of their actions, transforming the most mundane tasks into sacred and important rituals. They never separated religion from everyday life, perceiving the entire surrounding world as a direct manifestation of a great creative force. A foraging trip was not merely a utilitarian means of obtaining food. It was considered a sacred exchange of energy between humans and nature. In this ancient worldview, there was absolutely no place for greed or the senseless destruction of resources for the sake of mere entertainment. Every blessing taken from nature required a mandatory offering in the form of the most sincere human gratitude. Gratitude to the earth was expressed through small, but deeply meaningful and symbolic offerings to the spirits of the surrounding natural world. Before drinking fresh water from a stream, a hunter would respectfully spill a few drops onto the dry, cracked earth. Upon finding abundant clusters of ripe berries, he would always leave some of the fruit completely untouched as a gift to the local spirits. A small pinch of sweet grass or tobacco was often thrown into the fire so that the smoke would carry words of gratitude high into the heavens. These constant gestures of respect maintained the fragile, invisible balance between human needs and the prairie's resources. The concept of deep kinship was the most fundamental principle of the worldview of the Native Americans of the vast Great Plains. This idea signified a deep, inseparable kinship, not only among people, but also among absolutely all elements of the biosphere. Trees, rocks, rivers, and strong winds were considered full-fledged and respected members of this vast, universal natural family. People never placed themselves above nature. They clearly understood their humble role in this grand and complex natural mechanism. This understanding completely ruled out a consumerist attitude toward the planet, fostering tremendous frugality and a profound sense of responsibility. A purification ritual, using thick smoke from sage or sweetgrass, was performed regularly to maintain strong spiritual health. Smoldering bundles of herbs gave off very thick, incredibly fragrant smoke, with which a person would symbolically wash their body from head to toe. It was believed that this smoke carried away all negative and heavy thoughts, physical fatigue, and bad destructive energy. After such a purification, the mind instantly became clear, and the body regained its lightness and readiness for new, difficult trials. This simple yet important ritual was accessible to everyone and was performed almost every evening just before going to sleep. Visions played an absolutely crucial role in determining the correct life path for every adult man of the Lakota tribe. To receive his vision, a man would retreat to a secluded place for several days, completely abstaining from food and water. In a state of profound physical exhaustion and meditation, guardian spirits might come to him, offering wise counsel or warnings. These invisible spiritual guides often took the form of natural phenomena, the soft rustling of leaves, or the mysterious play of light and shadow. The vision received was kept incredibly carefully secret and completely determined the person's future destiny and social role. Lakota songs carried beautifully across the nighttime prairie, blending harmoniously with the sound of the wind and the quiet murmur of cold streams. It was the majestic music of freedom, born in a world where humanity and nature were one powerful, indivisible whole. 400 years ago, this land sounded completely different. Not yet knowing the roar of machinery or the frantic bustle of big cities, the echoes of those ancient songs of gratitude still live on in the rustling of the tall grass and in the genetic memory of the indigenous peoples. These great traditions persistently remind us of how important it is to be able to say thank you to the world in which we live. 400 years ago, the Great Plains were a completely different, unfathomable world, full of unspoiled beauty and abundance. The grass here grew so incredibly tall that it could easily hide a person standing upright at full height. The rivers were absolutely crystal clear, and the vast forests along their banks were bursting with wild fruits and edible roots. Humans fit into this landscape as organically and naturally as the wind sweeping across the endless green expanses of the plains. It was an era of sustainable natural balance, when nature had time to restore absolutely everything that humans took from it. A typical day for the Lakota was filled with hard work, but this labor was never grueling slavery for the sake of mere survival. It was creative, meaningful work that yielded tangible results and brought deep satisfaction from their own useful skills. Every member of the tribe knew exactly their place and their value, never suffering from loneliness or cruel social isolation. People were incredibly physically strong, resilient, and phenomenally resistant to any stress or unpredictable weather events. Their robust immune systems were constantly strengthened by fresh air, clean water, and consistent yet moderate physical activity in nature. Freedom of movement was the greatest treasure of these nomadic peoples, who were in no way tied to a specific patch of land. When resources in one place gradually ran out, the vast camp would simply pack up and move on to new, completely untouched territories. This allowed the soil and vegetation to rest undisturbed and fully recover over the course of several long and peaceful years. The nomadic way of life completely ruled out the accumulation of unnecessary possessions and fostered a very lighthearted, philosophical attitude toward material goods. The entire vast world was their home, completely free of fences, borders, or artificially created, insurmountable obstacles. The knowledge accumulated by these remarkable people constituted a colossal encyclopedia of botany, meteorology, and the psychology of survival. They had a profound understanding of the laws of ecology, long before this scientific term appeared in modern Western science. Their unique system of resource management was a perfect example of how to enjoy the Earth's bounty without destroying it in the slightest. Unfortunately, the vast majority of this unique knowledge was never written down and was passed down exclusively by word of mouth. This extremely fragile chain of transmission for vital information made their culture highly vulnerable to the looming historical changes. The loss of this harmonious world became the greatest tragedy not only for the indigenous peoples, but also for the continent's natural environment itself. The complex ecological relationships that had developed over millennia were brutally severed in just a few very short, devastating decades. The loss of freedom of movement and forced relocation to reservations dealt a crushing blow to these incredibly proud and freedom-loving nomads. They lost not just their land, they lost their traditional way of life and the very foundation of their worldview forever. Adapting to completely new and alien conditions demanded a colossal strain on absolutely all of the nation's physical and moral strength. However, the mighty spirit of the Lakota and their deep philosophical connection to the land did not vanish without a trace into the dust of centuries past. Despite all the hardships and trials, they managed to carefully preserve their songs, their legends, and their respect for nature. The modern descendants of those great hunters proudly continue to honor the traditions of their ancestors, adapting them to the conditions of the modern world. They steadfastly teach their children to understand the language of the wind and to treat every tree and every stream with great care. This living memory of their ancestors serves as a powerful foundation that reliably helps them preserve their national identity today. Studying the lives of Native Americans from the pre-contact period gives us a truly unique opportunity to glimpse an alternative path of development. It is an instructive story, showing that progress does not necessarily have to be accompanied by the total destruction of the environment around us. Their invaluable experience clearly demonstrates that true wealth lies not in the quantity of possessions, but in harmony with the world. In this era of severe environmental crises, this ancient knowledge is more relevant and in greater demand than ever before. We truly have much to learn from these wise people who knew how to live in complete harmony with the rhythms of their planet. The history of the Great Plains is a vast open book, its pages written by the wind, the sun, and human wisdom. 400 years ago, this book was open to the brightest and most bountiful of all its captivating chapters. Today, we can only attempt to reconstruct that era from rare fragments of old legends and valuable archaeological finds. But even these tiny bits of knowledge can inspire us to treat our shared home with much greater care. May this ancient tale of harmony and respect for the earth serve as a vital lesson for all future generations. We've immersed ourselves in the amazing world of the Lakota people, a world where nature was their greatest ally and wise teacher. Let us know in the comments what other aspects of the lives of North America's indigenous peoples you'd like to see in our next videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new exciting historical explorations and discoveries.